this picture would seem to undermine some of that systems thinking. We're looking at a picture of a variety of track gauges and a complex multi-gauge switch. I mean, it's fun metalwork, but it's a horror show. Chris, okay, tell us about track gauge.
Well. Fundamentally, we have three. I guess it's not unusual for countries to deal with differing gauges. I know the UK certainly had that with Brunel and so on, and the US as well. I know they had all various weird gauges, and Spain and Portugal, Russia, and whatever. But mostly, a lot of that has been dealt with, I think, in a century or so ago. Certainly in the UK, and not in Australia. We are still dealing with that today, and the problem is that from day one, the different states adopted different standards. So New South Wales adopted standard gauge, 1435. Victoria and South Australia adopted broad gauge, Irish gauge, 1600 millimetres. And Western Australia, Queensland, Tasmania adopted narrow gauge, 1067, which is Cape gauge, I guess. And the reasons for that are long and varied. It's the old story about an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Scotsman.
Yeah, exactly.
But you were right. And to be honest, it was a lot of miscommunication, and the time that it took requests and answers to get shipped back to the UK, to the Home Office or the Foreign Office or whatever it was, because the Australian standard was set at standard gauge. It was then, I think, as I understand it, which would have been in the 1830s or something. It was then there was a request can we change it to the Irish gauge because it would make it easier to build powerful enough locomotives, I believe. That request was sent off, and that was approved. But then it was changed again by the Sydney to Parramatta Railway. But by that time, the Victorian and South Australian railways had started with their broad gauge.
With their broad gauge, yeah.
And there was even a broad gauge in Tasmania. The first railway in Tasmania was actually broad gauge, but that changed later too. And ever since then, until really the 1960s, that really didn't change. And what you've got there, that's actually a transitional state. That photograph is from South Australia. South Australia really copped the raw end of the stick. That's from a place called Gladstone, which is it's a very British sounding name. It's a couple of 100 kilometres north of Adelaide. It was traditionally a narrow gauge town. It was a
1067,
1067. The railways around Adelaide, however, they were built to broad gauge, the 1600. And the South Australian government had a program of converting their narrow gauge railways to broad gauge. The broad gauge reached Gladstone in, I think it was the 1920s or 30s. I think I'm not sure about that. I should know that because my grandfather's from up that way. But and then what happened in 1970? But that left a lot of narrow gauge north thereof and east-west.
Yes.
But then in 1970, the east-west standard gauge came through and it ran through town. So it added a third gauge to town. So there was a triple gauge.
Oh, my goodness.
So it had this. And this was in place until, this is no longer the case. This is a purely standard gauge town now. But this was taken in about 1970 and it lasted until the late 80s in that sort of...
Yeah, and it's one of these stories where a separate episode would pick it up. Differing gauges is a route to not necessarily the right choices being made when it comes to the inevitable mid to late 20th century rationalizations. Is that decisions about what should be rationalized follow, well, the track's already the right gauge, so we'll keep that, rather than this is the right place to continue to have a railway functioning. We won't get into it, but I'm sure there's tales galore of that in the hinterland places around Australia. Yeah.
So suffice to say that, and on top of that, I might add, we also have significant amounts of narrower gauges too for specific purposes, most notably Queensland sugarcane railways or tramways.
Yes.
To this day, 610 millimetre, and there's still a lot a remarkable amount of that to this day.
The sugarcane. Now, catch me if I believe there are drawbridge crossings on the sugarcane railways. In fact, particularly one or two particularly famous examples crossing a mainline railway. I think I've been sent them, possibly by you, Chris. Actually.
Oh, yes. It's quite remarkable, and it's one of Australia's. Those railways carry significant traffic too.
Yes, yeah.
And go and run for long distances. So and there were even a couple of other. There's Puffing Billy. You might have heard the Puffing Billy steam railway in Victoria. That's 762 millimetres.
Oh yeah,
I think that is.
That's which is not quite, but nearly Austro-Hungarian, like Austrian gauge. That 760. That's 760. Oh no, I'm misremembering. Because that's 1,000 mil. Oh, 760. Yeah, 760 is one of the classics for urban gauge. Actually, you find a lot of tramways that are 760.
Yeah, well, there were four of those railways in the hilly parts of Victoria, and two of them survive as tourist railways.
Oh, really interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. People tell me what the Imperial 762, what that is in Imperial, but I don't mind.